Good afternoon and welcome to Column Cymru revision session. This session will focus on Maths GCSE and will be presented by myself, Mrs Dixon from Pentre Harvard School. The session will last around 45 minutes where I will go through the relevant subject content. If you have any questions, please use the question and answer section and I will endeavour to answer your question during the session. The session will be recorded and the recording and any relevant resources uploaded to the e-sgol website in the Column Cymru area. Okay then, so today we're going to look at ratio and recipes. So these are the things that we're going to try and get through today. So simplifying ratios, sharing in a given ratios, calculate a total using a ratio, recipes, and then some GCSE questions as well. So straight to it. What is ratio? So as you can see in the yellow box, a ratio compares values. Okay, it says how much of one thing there is compared to something else. For example, 1 teacher to 20 students. Now we can write that as shortened version as 1 to 20. Now in maths we have a symbol that we can use for the word to, which introduces our ratios, and that is a colon that you can see there. Okay, so 1 with then the colon in between and then the 20. It's read as 1 to 20, okay, and then it is our ratios that we have. So we're going to start with simplifying ratios, and simplifying ratios means to cancel down the ratio as far as possible. So just like you would simplify fractions and cancel fractions down, that's what we do here. Okay, so ratios can be simplified by dividing each part by the highest common factor. Now we did highest common factor in this session a couple of weeks ago. Factors are numbers that go into a given number, and the highest common factor is the biggest number that we can get to go into perhaps 2 or 3 or 4 values that we have. So starting off, we're going to go through these couple of examples, and I have simplify each of the following. Okay, so the word simplify, it means now cancel down as far as we can. Now what we can do is divide by something that goes into both of these, just like you would with a fraction. So I would read this as 7 to 14. And I know that 7 and 14 are in my 7 times table. So the highest common factor, the biggest number that goes into 7 and 14 is 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both values, both parts of the ratio, by 7, giving me a simplified version. So I would say how many 7s go into 7? 1. Then I have the 2 dots, which is 2, so 1 to something. And then how many 7s in 14 is 2. So it gives me a ratio of 1 to 2. Looking at question 2, I can see they're both in the 2 times table. They're both in the 4 times table, and they're not in any other. So the highest common factor is a 4, the biggest number that goes into both. Okay, so I'm going to divide these both by 4. And I'm going to write down my new ratio, simplified version of what I had. So how many 4s in 20? 5. How many 4s in 24? 6. So it's now simplified to 5 to 6. Okay, so if you want to pause the video, have a go with a couple of questions you can see on the right. I'll give you a few seconds to pause it and then I'll start going through them. Okay, so highest common factor here is 5. So I'm going to divide both parts of this by 5, giving me 3 to 1. Okay, so 5 goes into 15 3 times, 5 goes into 5 once. And then I can see the highest common factor of 24 and 36 is 12. Oh, missed my 1 out. So I'm going to divide them both by 12. So that's going to give me 2 to 3. Now, if you couldn't find the highest common factor, that's okay. So what you could do is cancel down a few times. Okay, so say if we take this last one now, 24 to 36, I could say, well, they're both even. So if I halve them both, so I divide both of them by 2, I would get 12 to 18. But I wouldn't stop there. I can say, okay, well, they're both even again. So 2 must go into them both again. So I'm going to halve them both again. That would give me 6 to 9. Now I can't halve both of them because I never want to go into decimals. Okay, so what I can do here is have a think. Is there another times table the 6 and 9 would go into? And there is. That's the 3 times table. So if I divide them both by 3, I would get 2 to 3. So you could do it without using the highest common factor. It's just going to take you a little bit longer to get to the answer. But you've got to keep going and keep going until the only thing you can divide into both of them is 1. And then you know you've gone to the end then of what you need to do. Okay then, so check the units are the same. So by that I mean, if we have a look at this, we've got 20 centimetres and 4 metres. Okay, so we've got centimetres here, metres here. You cannot simplify our ratios unless you have them in the same units. So you need to bring in a bit of other knowledge here, and you need to know that there are 100 centimetres in 1 metre. So I'm going to convert this 4 metres into centimetres, and I'm going to rewrite it. Now, as soon as they're in the same units, I don't have to put the units on there. So I'm going to write this as 20 to 400, and then I'm going to cancel that down. I'm going to simplify that. Now 20 actually goes into both of these values, so 20 is my highest common factor. So I'm going to divide them both by 20, and it would give me a ratio of 1 to 20. Okay. Similar thing here. I've got pounds, I've got £10, and I've got 50 pence. So there is £1 is equal to 100 pence. So I'm going to change this £10. I'm going to multiply by 100. So it's going to give me 1,000 pence compared to 50 pence. And again, I don't need to put the units on here now because I know they're in the same units. So I've got, oh, that looks like equals there, doesn't it? That's what my ratio in there. So 1,000 to 50. And I can say, well, 50 goes into both of these. So I'm going to divide them both by 50. That's going to give me 20 to 1. Okay. Right then, you try the ones on the right-hand side, please. In a few seconds, I'll start going through them. Pause the video if you've got time. Okay, so what you should have done is put them both into minutes. So there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So this would turn into 120 minutes compared to 30 minutes. You can see the 30 goes into both of them. So I'm going to divide by 30, giving me an answer of 4 to 1. The second one, 1 week and 6 days. So there are 7 days in a week. So I'm going to change this into a 7 and this one into a 6. And actually, there's nothing that divides into both apart from the value 1. So that doesn't change anything when I divide. So that one is already simplified. I just had to get it into the same unit. So I needed them all as days here. Okay then, so order is very important. And what I've been, like if I go back to the last slide, I had on my examples 1 to 20 and 20 to 1. Now they are not the same. Okay, the order is important. Like I've said here, 2 to 3 is not the same as 3 to 2. So if I have a worded question and have a look at what we have in this, there are 32 pupils in a class. Okay, so 32 pupils in total. 20 of them are girls. What is the ratio of boys to girls, and then in its simplest form? So let's start then. So 32 pupils in a class, so that is my total. 20 of them are girls. So before I start thinking about ratio, I'm just going to work out how many girls and how many boys I have. So 20 girls is given to me. And then the boys, well, there's 32 in total, and 20 of them are girls. I'm going to subtract 20 away from 32 to leave me with 12. So I've got 20 girls and 12 boys in this class. And then it says, what is the ratio of boys to girls? Well, boys to girls means that I put them in that order. So boys comes first, so I would write that first. So I would write 12 here, then my colon for the ratio, and then the girls is 20. So just like we've done on the previous slides, we would now try and cancel this down. So I know that these are in the 2 times table and they're in the 4 times table. So I'm going to divide them by the biggest one. So I'm going to divide by 4, leaving me with 3 to 5 as my answer. Okay, so I started by saying, right, how many girls, how many boys? Write that in the order that the question says, so boys to girls, so boys first, then girls, then simplify it down. Okay, if you can try the one on the bottom, please. So I'll read through it. There are 50 sweets, 25 are jellies, 10 are fizzy bottles, and the rest are boiled. Write the ratio of jellies to fizzy bottles to boiled sweets in its simplest form. So I'll give you some time to pause the video before I go through this. Okay then, so we have 50 sweets in total. So let's just highlight the key information first. So 50 sweets is the total, 25 are jellies, 10 are fizzy bottles. Now we're not actually told how many boiled there are, but we're just told the rest are boiled. So before I do anything with my ratio, I'm actually going to work out how many boiled sweets I have. So boiled sweets, I know I've got a total of 50, 25 are jelly and 10 are fizzy. So that will leave me, if I do my calculation of taking away what I've got 50, take away 25, take away 10. So that's the same as doing 50, take away 35. It means I've got 15 boiled sweets. Okay, so now I can move on and say, right, let's have a look at the ratios. So they wanted jellies first, so that's 25. Then they wanted fizzy bottles, so that's 10. And then, because you don't have to just have two values for a ratio, they want boiled sweets, which we've just worked out to be 15. So I can see these are all in the 5 times table. So I'm going to divide them by 5, and I'm going to write what they are once I've simplified them. So how many 5s in 25? 5. How many 5s in 10? 2. How many 5s in 15? 3. And I fully simplified that. So that's where I would stop with this question. Okay. All right, then, well done. So this is what we've done so far. So we're already quite a way through. So we're looking at simplifying ratios. So the next thing we're going to do is still with ratios, but we're going to look at sharing. So these are the steps you have to follow. So we've got step 1, we're going to add together the ratios that we're given. Step 2, we're going to divide the amount by the answer you had above. Step 3, we're going to multiply each ratio by the answer in step 2. And then we're going to do a little check at the end to see if your answers add up to the total you started with. So we're going to keep that on the board while we have a look at an example. And we have share 40 kilograms in the ratio 5 to 3. So I'm going to follow these steps now that I've written above. So step 1, add the ratios. So the ratios are the 5 and the 3. So I'm going to work out 5, add 3, giving me an answer of 8. That's step 1 done. I'm going to take that off. So step 2, divide the amount in the question by the answer you've had above. Okay, so the amount in the question is 40 kilograms. I'm just going to write 40 for my work-ins. And I need to divide that by what I've just worked out. So I need to divide that by 8. And I now have to work this out. So that is 5. And that's step 2 done. And then step 3, multiply each ratio by the answer you had in step 2. Now each ratio is 5 and 3. So I'm actually going to have 2 answers. And I'm going to work out 2 things here. So the 5 and the 3 are from the ratios. And then I have this number here then, the 5 that I've just worked through, and I'm going to multiply them both by that. Okay, so 5 multiplied by 5 is 25. 3 multiplied by 5 is 15. Now we need to put it in the context of the question, and this was in kilograms, so we're going to keep this in kilograms as well, and we're going to have units on our answer. So we've got 25 kilograms and 15. That's step 3. That's actually the question finished. However, we now have a little check process that we could do, which says, do your answers add up to the total you started with? So if I do a quick check, 25 add 15, they come to 40. That's what I started with. So I am happy that I've got my answers correct because I know that they add up to what they should add up to. Okay. So if you can do the same thing now with this next question, so pause the video, have a go at sharing £75 in the ratio 3 to 2. Right then, so I'm going to start going through it. Hopefully you've paused the video and had to go. So step 1, add the ratios. So 3 add 2 equals 5. Step 2, the amount in the question is 75. So I need to divide that by 5, and then I'm going to work out that answer, which comes to 15. Step 3, each ratio, which is the 3 and the 2, gets multiplied by what I've just worked out, which is 15. So I'm going to multiply each of these by 15 to get my 2 answers. Now these are in pounds, so I'm going to put my pound sign in there ready. So 3 multiplied by 15 is 45, and 2 multiplied by 15 was 30. So I'm hoping you had the answers of 45 and 30 when you work through these. And if you add them together, just as a little check, you don't actually have to write this bit down. You can just do this as something in your head and just say, okay, well, is 45 at 30, 75? Yes, that's what I should have. Brilliant, let's move on. Okay, right, we're going to do a similar thing now, but we've actually just got more things to our parts to our ratio. So we've got 4, 7 and 3. So 4 to 7 to 3 is how we would read and say this. But we follow the same steps. So add the ratio, 4 add 7 add 3, which comes to 14. Divide the amount in the question by that, which comes to 5. And then each ratio gets multiplied by that answer. So I'm going to have 3 answers this time. So I'm going to multiply all of my ratios by 5, giving me, again, these are in pounds, so I'm going to put my pound signs in there. So 4 multiplied by 5 is 20. 7 multiplied by 5 is 35, and 3 multiplied by 5 is 15. I'm going to do a very quick check to see if they add up to £70. So 35 add 5 is 40, add a 10 is 50, add on the 20 is 70. Brilliant, I've got my answer. So the 3 answers are there then as your final step. Okay, please pause the video and try the next one. So share 108 sweets in the ratio 2 to 3 to 4. Okay, then, so what you should have been doing is 2 add 3 add 4 to give you 9. Then working out 108 divided by 9, which comes to 12. And then each ratio, so the 2, 3 and the 4, gets multiplied by 12. And then this will tell me how many sweets I have. So 2 multiplied by 12 is 24 sweets. 3 multiplied by 12 is 36 sweets. 4 multiplied by 12 is 48 sweets. Okay, now this one isn't so easy to just add up in your head, so I'm actually going to write this one down when I add them up as my check. So 4 add 6 is 10, add 8 is 18, so I'm going to have that. Then I'm going to add on then the 2 and the 3 make 5, add 4 is 9, add 1 is 10. So I got 108, that's what I started with. So that check I'm happy with is correct. Okay, so this is where we've got to now. So we've done 2 out of them that we've done now. So we've done the sharing in the given ratio as well. And then we're going to move on now to calculating a total. So sticking with ratios, but this is where we do it in a slightly different way. So we have step 1 this time is find out how much one part is worth. And then step 2, calculate the total or what is needed. Now, depending on the wording of the question, will alter what you do here. Okay, so we've really got to be careful with our reading of the questions. Right then, so we have sweets are shared between Ben, Sam and Tom in the ratio 3, 4 and 5. So Ben is going to have 3 parts. I'm just going to change the colour on here so you can see them. Sam is going to have 4 parts because remember the order that we read them in is really important. And then Tom is going to have 5 parts. Okay. And then the question is, so Tom now gets £20. Okay, we know that. We have to work out how much Ben and Sam each get. So how many sweets do Ben and Sam each get? Okay, so this is what we're going to try and work out. So going back to the steps that we have at the top, we have first step, find out how much one part is worth. So what we know in this question is the bits in blue. We know Tom. We know Tom gets 20 sweets. And Tom represents 5 parts. You can see it in the blue section there. So let's start writing this down. So Tom has 5 parts of our ratio. And we know that that is 20 sweets. Okay, so this is information we're picking out of the question. So step 1 says find out how much 1 part is worth. Well, if 5 parts are worth 20 sweets, and I want to know how much 1 part is worth, to get from 5 down to 1, I have to, it's only multiplying or dividing you use here, I have to divide by 5. So I do the same to these number of sweets. So I'm going to divide 20 by 5. So that's going to give me 4 sweets. Okay, so what I've done, I took the information for the question, which was 5 parts are 20 sweets, and worked out how I would work out what 1 part was worth. So 1 part of my ratio is worth 4 sweets. So now when the question says how many sweets do Ben and Sam each get, we can do that because we know how many parts of the ratio they have. So Ben now has 3 parts of the ratio. If I look at what's highlighted in yellow, that is 3 parts. Well, if 1 part is worth 4 sweets, 3 parts must be 4 multiplied by 3, which is 12 sweets. So that's how many Ben has. And then we do a similar thing then for Sam. So Sam is in green. So he has 4 parts. So if 1 part is worth 4 sweets, and I want 4 parts, he's going to get 20 sweets. Now what we can't do this time is add them up to check because we didn't actually know what the total was to start with. The only thing we knew was what Tom had. Tom had 20 sweets. So we can't do our little check at the end here for this type of question. Okay, so if you can try the next one again, pause the video for me and have a go before I start going through it, please. Okay, so I'm going to highlight now. So I've got Julie. She comes first in the sentence, so she's going to have the first ratio. So she's got 6 parts. We're also told that Julie has 42 pounds. Okay, so all the bits in yellow now are related to Julie. Mark, then I'm going to highlight in blue, and he comes second, so he's going to have the 5 parts. Now the question this time is how much did they share? So how much did they have originally is essentially what we're looking to find. Okay, so how much did they share? Right then, so we only know how much Julie had, so we have to start with Julie. So I'm going to label what I'm doing. So I've got, it's really clear with my workings, what I'm working through here. So Julie has 6 parts and her money that she has is 42 pounds. So you have to follow step 1 is to get how much 1 part is worth. So to go from 6 parts to 1 part, I have to divide by 6. So I'm going to do that to the 42 pounds because I have to match what I'm doing. So to 42 divided by 6 is 7 pounds. So every 1 part of my ratio is worth 7 pounds. Now then this time they're asking how much did they share? So we've got 2 ways we can do this. We can work out how much Mark had and add it on, or we can say, well, the 2 ratios together is the whole thing, and 6 and 5 is 11, so 11 parts is going to be the total. So if I know that 1 part is 7 pounds, to work out 11 parts, I need to multiply that 7 pounds by 11. Which means that altogether they shared 77 pounds. Now we could have done that by working out Mark's share by finding 5 parts and then adding that on. What we would have had would have been 35 pounds for Mark, 42 pounds for Julie, and then we would have added them together to get the 77 pounds. Okay, so you can do it that way round as well if you want to. Okay then, so we've now moved on. So the next section, which is related to our kind of ratios and looking at proportion, is recipes. So here's the first question that we're going to go through. Okay, so here is a list of ingredients for making 10 flapjacks. So it's really important we highlight our key information. So the first bit is that we have 10 flapjacks. We need to know how many we're looking at. Okay. And then we've got 80 grams of rolled oats, 60 grams of butter, 30 millilitres of golden syrup, 36 grams of light brown sugar. And then it says underneath, work out the amount of each ingredient. Okay, so the amount of each ingredient needed to make 15 flapjacks. Okay then, so our recipe shows 10 flapjacks, but I need to get to 15. So you've got to think about how you could move from a 10 to a 15. And yes, we want to add 5, but how can we add 5 if we've only got a ratio, recipe that shows 10? So could we work out how many it would be for 5? And then could we build up? All right, so there's different, it's about kind of noticing patterns and how we would get there. So I would start this question by saying, okay, oh, that's a P, that should be an F. Let me rub that out. I would start this question by saying, let's work out what the recipe would be for 5 flapjacks. Okay, because if I know what 5 flapjacks recipe is, I can then build up to 15. So to get from 10 flapjacks to 5 flapjacks, I would need to half the recipe, and halving the recipe is to divide by 2. So I'm going to do that to each of my ingredients. So 80 grams halved would be 40 grams of rolled oats. 60 grams halved would be 30 grams of butter. 30 millilitres halved would be 15 millilitres of golden syrup. And then 36 grams of light brown sugar halved would be 18 grams of light brown sugar. And then I want to get to what the question was asking me, which was 15 flapjacks. So to move from 5 flapjacks to 15, I've got different ways I could do this. I could multiply this by 3. So I could say, okay, well, I know I need 3 5s to get 15. So that would work. Or another way would be if you know what the 10 flapjacks are, you know what the 5 flapjacks are, you could add them together. Okay, both methods are valid, so it's completely up to you how you would work through this little bit. I'm actually going to choose to do the adding up method, so I'm going to do the 10 plus the 5 flapjacks to make my 15. So I'm going to say 80 grams plus 40 grams is 120 grams of rolled oats. I'm going to do that for each of them then. So 60 grams plus 30 grams is 90 grams of butter. 30 millilitres plus 15 millilitres, 45 millilitres of golden syrup. And then 36 grams plus 18 grams, 54 grams of light brown sugar. And then we've answered that question then based on moving from one value, which was the 10, to the 15. Okay. All right then, so if you could try this next question, have a go at part A, have a read of part B, and if you can try and answer part B, that would be brilliant. I will go through this in a couple of seconds. If you want to pause the video, please. Okay then, so first thing is let's have it really clear with what the question is giving us and what we're trying to work out. So Fred has a recipe for 30 biscuits. He has 230 grams of self-raising flour, 150 grams of butter, 100 grams of caster sugar, and 2 eggs. Fred wants to make 45 biscuits. Complete his new list of ingredients for 45. Okay, so this is similar to how we've already started. So we knew that this was 30 biscuits, what was given here, and we need to get to 45. So if I compare 30 to 45, I have to add 15. So how can I get 15 from 30 biscuits? I need to half. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to half the values to work out what the recipe would be for 15 biscuits. So a half of 230 is 115 grams. A half of 150, 75 grams. Half of 100, and then half of 2 means I've got this as a recipe for 15, but I didn't want 15, I wanted 45. So just like we did on the previous question, we need to now think about how we could put these together. So 15 biscuits, the recipe I've got at the moment. To get to 45, I could multiply that by 3, and I'd have to do that to the recipe. Or like I did in the last one, I could add up the 30 biscuits recipe and the 15 biscuits recipe, and that together would make the 45. So to get the 45 biscuits, okay, what I would do would be 230 add the 115. So that would give me 345 grams of flour. To get the butter one, I would do 150, add on the 75, and I add those together, I get 225 grams. The next one, I've got 100 grams plus 50 grams, so that is 150 grams there. And then the eggs one, I've got 2 to start with and the one I have, so I've got 3 eggs. Okay, so my recipe is now complete, and you can see there's a 3-mark GCSE question. Okay, so that was part A of the question. Part B of the question says Jill only has 1 kilogram of self-raising flour. She has plenty of all the other ingredients. Work out the maximum number of biscuits that Jill could make. Okay, so the maximum number. So it's the self-raising flour that we've got to limit. And we need to think about, first of all, how many grams are in a kilogram, and then how many of those we could use to get this recipe that we started with, which was 230 grams of self-raising flour needed for every 30 biscuits. So what you need to learn, okay, because this isn't given in the exam, is that 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams. Okay, so it's something you need to learn there. So 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams. Okay, so that means I have 1,000 grams of self-raising flour because she's got 1 kilogram. And up on the top where we started, we had 230 grams of self-raising flour for every 30 biscuits. So we need to find out how many 230s I can use out of 1,000. And then I need to go a little bit bigger. Okay then, so 230 grams needs to be divided into 1,000. So I'm going to do 1,000 divided by 230. So you could use a calculator for this question, and it would give you 4.347826087. Now we don't need all of those decimal points, so we're going to write it as 4.3 to 1 decimal place. So that is telling me how many times I can use the recipe and how many times it would fit in and so on. So if I know that I can use the recipe above 4.3 times, and each one of those recipes is worth 30 biscuits, what I need to do now is multiply. However, when we have an egg, we cannot have half an egg or a quarter of an egg. We either got an egg or we haven't. So we're not going to be, we have to go in multiples of 15s because that's what we use is 1 egg. So we need to be thinking about how many times you can use this recipe and whether you could fit in another one. Okay, so what we've got here is 4 whole times I could use this 30 biscuit recipe. So 4 lots of 30 means I know I can make 120 biscuits without any issues at all. Okay, so what you've then got to check is, can you make another 15 biscuits? Now to make another 15 biscuits, I would need another 115 grams. I'm just going to move over to the right hand side now. Okay, now if I do a little bit of calculation and say, right, well, 230 times by 4 lots of the recipe that I had, that came to 920 grams. Now, to get to the next lot of recipes, I would need at least another 115 grams. I've only got 1,000. And if I've got 920 being used already, there's 80 grams that haven't been used. So I haven't got enough grams to get another 15 biscuits. And remember, I can't go less than 15 or more decimals because I've got this one egg and I can't split an egg in half. So actually, what she can do is, oh, he's a, well, we know Jill, isn't it? So it's a lady. So Jill is using 4 lots of the original recipe. So 4 lots of 30, so 120 is actually our answer. But we did need to do that check to see if we could have fitted some more biscuits in there or not. Okay, right, so what we're going to do now is have a look at some GCSE questions. So we've got a variation of sort of the ratios and the recipe things that we've got. So we're going to start now with this question, which takes us back to our ratio work that we started with. So let's highlight our key information. So it says there are 20 sweets in a packet. 12 of the sweets are mints. The rest are toffees. Write down the ratio of the number of mints to the number of toffees, and you must give it in its simplest form. Okay, so like we did earlier on, we need to actually work out how many we have of each. So we know how many mints we have. We're told in the question up here, we have 12 mints. What we don't know is how many toffees we have. But we do know there are 20 sweets in total. So if 12 of them are mints and 20 sweets are all together, I would need to do 20 take away 12 to tell me I have 8 toffees. So I now know I've got 12 mints and 8 toffees. So if I carry on reading what the question is asking me to do, it says, write down the ratio of the number of mints to the number of toffees. So mints has to go first because the mints come first in the words. So that ratio is going to be written as 12 to 8. But that's not my final answer. I haven't put it on my answer line because the next line tells me I've got to simplify. I need this in its simplest form. So they're both even, so I can half them. But I also know that they're both in the 4 times table. So if I divide them both by 4, I will get 3 to 2. And I do a little check in my head. Is there any number that 2 and 3 are both in? Any times table, sorry. No, they're not. So that is the final answer apart from 1, which doesn't change anything. So 3 to 2 is the ratio that I would then say is my answer. Okay, right then, as always, all right, if you want to pause the video and have a go at this question first, I will start going through it in a few seconds. Lovely. Okay then, so we have the ingredients needed to make raspberry pancakes are shown in the table below. Some of the quantities are missing. Quantities means values, okay? So we're looking at some of the numbers are missing. Fill out the missing quantities in the table. Right then, so we have the first column represents 8 pancakes. Next one is 16, and then the next one is 80. So before we start filling in this table, we need to have a bit of a relationship going on between these columns. So if we start on the first one, we've got 8 pancakes. To move from 8 to 16, I have to double. Okay, so I'm going to multiply by 2 to go from 8 pancakes to 16. So I can use that then when I go to fill in some numbers below. And I'm actually going to skip the 16 now. To move from 8 to 80, I can multiply by 10. And again, I can use that now to fill in some of the values that I have missing here. So I know I need to double to go from 8 to 16. I know I need to multiply by 10 to go from 8 to 80. So let's have a look at that first one. So we got flour. So the 16 pancakes value is missing. So if I know that for 8 pancakes, I need 100 grams, I need to double that. So it's 200 grams that should have gone in here. all of the next columns completed, so there's nothing I need to do. And then when I move down to milk, there's only one value that's done. I only got the 80 pancakes. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to try and come back and I'm going to fill in the 8 pancakes first. So if I know I've got to multiply to go from 8 to 80, I need to reverse that. So I'm actually going to divide by 10 to come back. So 2,500 will be divided by 10, and then that will give me 250. So that's what I would write in on this line here, so 250 millilitres. Then I can use that answer to say, well, I've got a double, I need to double that to move to 16. So this must be 500 millilitres. All of the next line is filled in, so I'm down to the bottom line, which is raspberries. So I've got the first two and I need to get to 80. So I'm going to skip that 16. I'm going to use this one because I know I have to multiply by 10 here. So 150 multiplied by 10, 1,500 grams would go in that one. And then part B, I'm going to just get my highlighter out a second. So write down the ratio of flour to the weight of raspberries in its simplest form. So flour then, it doesn't matter what column you use. I'm going to go for the 8 pancakes one because that actually is going to mean I do less simplifying. So the flour is 100 grams. That comes first because it's first in the words, and then raspberries is 150. So I have this ratio that I need to simplify, 100 to 150. So I know 50 goes into both of them. So I'm going to start by dividing both of them by 50. So 50 goes into 100 twice, 50 goes into 150 3 times, and that's actually the simplified answer. So that would be where I stop there. And altogether, that is a 6-mark GCSE question. Okay, so you get 4 marks for filling in the table, and then you get an extra 2 marks then at the bottom for doing that ratio and simplifying. Okay, so we're going to finish off now. If we have a look at what we've covered today, we've covered lots of different things. So to finish off, I'm going to you just pause the video and see if you can fill in the blanks for me there, and then I will go through them in a second. Okay, so it says fill in the blanks, steps for sharing in a given ratio. So step 1 is something the ratios. So what we did first, if you remember, I had them in a yellow box at the top of the slide, we added the ratios. Step 2 said something the amount by the something you had above. So that was divide the amount by the answer you had above. Step 3, something each something by the answer in step 2. So that is, oh, I'm going backwards, sorry. That is multiply each ratio by the answer in step 2. And then the final bit, I had a blank, do your answers blank up to the blank you started with. So this one was a check, do your answers add up to the total you started with. Okay, so those are the steps you have to follow for sharing in a given ratio. But remember, we've done much more than that today. We did finding a total, we did simplifying ratios, and we've done some recipes. So well done for all of the hard work that you've done today. Bye, everyone.